Once you've arrived at retirement, what accounts do you start pulling from? Well, that's the question we got today that we're going to answer with Ryan Ledden. It's a real life scenario we're going to talk through next. Welcome in. This is Perfect Game Retirement. I'm Ben George with Ryan Ledden, founder and owner of Black Oak Asset Management, also a certified financial planner. Ryan, I have an interesting question that I want to ask you today, and I'm going to run it by you first. This one came in to us. I want to ask you the question. Then we're going to work through this thing together here. But here's the situation. I have 4 different investment accounts, my 401k at work, an IRA, a Roth IRA, and something that's just labeled as an individual account. Which one should I withdraw from first when I retire next year and need income? So great question. Before we even get into the answer to that, Ryan, just talk about that mindset shift, because you're saving so long for most of your life and you get to retirement, all of a sudden it's like, okay, the paycheck's not coming in. I got to create my own paycheck now.
Very different mindset. Some people, it grips them with fear, knowing that paycheck is not coming in, that their income has stopped from their mind or their abilities at work. So it is a different mindset. The decumulation phase is very different than the accumulation phase. Again, accumulation, we're just plowing our head forward and saving as much as we can, checking our balances and saying, oh, okay, cool, it's up to this or whatever. But then when you get to retirement, and then, ideally, and we talked about this on the radio show, I believe that, some people say, I want to just live off the principal, keep the nest egg and live off the interest, keep the principal and live off the interest and dividend payments, which, that's great. That doesn't always happen that way though. So, because balances are going to change, interest rates are going to change, interest payments, dividend payments, they're all going to fluctuate. So, but yeah, it's just a very different mindset, and some people are accept it a little quicker than others.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here. So let's answer the question that came in. 401k, IRA, okay, Roth IRA, and an individual account. So how do you start working with someone that comes into Black Oak, sits down with you, and you start talking through how to build an income plan? I know it's going to be different for every person, but generally, how do you work through these different types of accounts and determine which one should be the starting point?
Yeah, this is the fun, nerdy part of my job. This is what gets my juices flowing here. And this is where sometimes people ask, do I really need an advisor when I'm in the accumulation phase? I just got everything in my 401k. And some people may not need an advisor or feel like they need an advisor early on. But when they get to how to start pulling money out, it is reverse engineering. And that is the fun part. So I've read countless articles that, stereotypically it's, take money out of taxable accounts first, and then IRA accounts next, and then Roth accounts last. Well, I completely disagree with that, because it does depend. And I think it's constant ebbs and flows. So we want to obviously legally take advantage of the IRS tax code. And so if you can keep more money in your pocket and not pay as much taxes, well, let's do that. So what is your configuration? Where is your income coming from? Is it coming from Social Security, which is taxed a little bit different than a IRA? Rebecca said she had a 401k. I'm assuming, Rebecca, that's all pre-tax. Obviously, the IRA is pre-tax. Roth is after-tax / tax-free, as long as it's been in there for 5 years, Rebecca, and you're 59 and a half. And the individual account. So the individual account, there's no universal name for an individual account. Every custodian has a little bit of a different name, but individual account, that's just an investment account or a brokerage account or an after-tax account that you don't pay tax again on what you put into the account. You just potentially pay taxes on the growth when you liquidate some of those investments and holdings. Now, you may have to pay taxes on interest each year, or dividends, qualified dividends. Again, that's a conversation for another day. But so there's no exact science to what you take out of first. I'm a little bit of the school of thought. You take a little bit out of each one. It depends on the current year. It depends on the rates of return. It depends on your income. So there's so many loopholes, if you will, of the IRS tax code that we want to take advantage of. So that individual account, let's say you have a stock in there that has huge appreciation. Maybe you bought it when it was just starting out and it's got huge appreciation. Well, there's ways to maybe take money out of that and pay zero or very little gains, because your taxable income is less. Now, again, that's a whole rabbit hole to go down. I'm not going to get into it, but that's some of the things we help clients with, is how do we take this out and keep as much money of yours as possible?
Yeah, as you can see, a lot of different kind of scenarios to work through, and it's going to be different. You'll hear that a lot from us on the channel here and on the podcast and on radio where Ryan is in Atlanta. But it does truly depend. But I guess the pushback, Ryan, I'd throw your way is if for somebody that's watching this, and obviously the question that came in, somebody's obviously thinking about this, very cognizant of the differences. But for people to say, does it actually matter, Ryan? Does it really truly matter? And how much is it going to affect the money that I have in retirement if I do choose one over the other, and maybe not the exact timing that you would choose?
Yeah, great question and great point. So it 100% does. Obviously, with 401ks and IRAs. So Rebecca, obviously, there's no account balances. We don't want to know your account balances over a podcast, but it depends on what ratios you have in that pre-tax bucket, in that taxable bucket, and in the tax-free bucket. So ratios as far as percentages of how much you have in there. So you may, now if you're like 80% in pre-tax, you may have a little less wiggle room on what you can do. That's why planning early, going back to that previous point in another show, is how the earlier you start planning for this stuff, the more flexibility you have down the road. So if you've been saving in pre-tax accounts, Rebecca, and you got 80% of your net worth in pre-tax accounts, you don't have a ton of flexibility. But if you have kind of even ratios, it is amazing how much longer, if you're taking less out of your nest egg because you owe less in taxes, it just allows your nest egg and your legacy to live way beyond you. If legacy is a importance for you. Now, if leaving a legacy to kids left behind, if that is important for you and you want them to be as tax efficient as possible, then okay, maybe you take less out of your Roth along the way. So that way they don't pay taxes as they take it out. Now, they still have the 10-year rule, at least as of now. The Secure Act 2.0 has the 10-year rule. Could change. So that remains to be seen. But it does truly matter, Ben, on how they take this out, because if you're paying less in taxes, you keep more of your money, which means your nest egg lasts longer.
I don't know how old Rebecca is who asked this question, but at what kind of stage should you be thinking about this income planning, Ryan? Is this something that you can get a big jump on, or is it something you truly have to wait until you're about to be retired to start figuring out where this money's going to come from?
Yeah, you can. The earlier, the better. Now, again, some people, if they're just starting out, they're just getting the match at their 401k and maybe doing some Roth IRA investing. Again, may not need an advisor at that point, but me being in my mid 40s, because your 40s, 50s, and 60s are usually your highest income generating years, and I want to make sure that I'm ahead of that. Now, obviously, this is what I do for a living, so I feel like I am. But for some people, this is not their cup of tea. And so our ideal client is someone who does very well for themselves and their family, takes interest in this, but is not consumed by this because they have busy lives and they are working and they don't have time to look at this day in and day out. But I would say, Ben, if I had to throw a number out there, I would at least say by 50. I mean, I think 50 is that number that kind of slaps you in the face like, oh my gosh, I'm 50 years old and I'm coming up on that in a few years. I'll be 48 later this year. So and that's an arbitrary number, just like January 1st is an arbitrary date to start some of this stuff. But I would say at least around 50. Some people it's before then. Some people it's after then. But the sooner you start, just like with anything, just like the sooner you start investing, the more you're going to have down the road. But the sooner you start planning for this, it opens up more and more options down the road, which that sign me up. I want more options.
Yeah. The earlier you start on this stuff, the more, again, options you have, more opportunity you have to change the path you're on, maybe tweak some things and really get yourself in the best shape possible for retirement, which is where you want to be, right? So again, if you want to get in touch with Ryan, speakwithryan.com. You can get in touch, schedule a time to meet with him there. But also drop a comment if you have one. If you have a question for us, reach out. You can also connect to blackoakam.com. Again, all the contact info will be in the show description, so be sure to check it out there. And again, subscribe if you haven't already. We'd appreciate that support as well. All right, we'll see you again next time right here on Perfect Game Retirement.